Copywriter by profession.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I do.
And
then,
what made you?
and so basically, the money I raised from the work that I do helped me self publish and self fund the whole project.
My goodness me.
Yeah, so I started out obviously I started doing these stories during level 5 lockdown.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And then the reason how I survived my lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got popular because also LinkedIn is a platform where people are serious.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave people a light-hearted vibe.
And tell me about these things. These are typical South African stuff.
Yeah, brand. So the stories are always linked to a specific product. Like for example, Tupperware. We all know Guti. Tupperware is like our mom's.
Okay.
It's like the heart of our mothers, Yeah.
Salute to summer. Nature's way of saying, let's have some fun.
26 minutes to 12 o'clock, and thank you so much for sticking around with us. You're on 702. My name is Thabo Sholemashal. I'm standing in for Clement. This is 702. Let's walk the talk. We are together all the way up until 12. So I'm excited to be with you, but more excitedly, there is a great young man in front of me, and you'll check him out on Twitter. We'll put up the pictures right now. His name is Katlego Thulare. He's written a book. Welcome to South Africa. Jomas, a book. And Katlego Thulare has got this cheeky book. And if you wonder why, that's because he's also a copywriter. He's a copywriter, and so he's in that space of creativity. The book looks amazing. It's about typical South African stories. But I don't want to say much. I just want him to do the talking for himself. Katlego, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. It's amazing for just an ordinary guy who loves to tell extraordinary stories, to be on such a platform, getting to share more stories, right?
Yeah. I'm only excited to have a brilliant young man like you here in the studio because you've written this book and it's mainly about South Africa, right?
Yes.
Tell us about it. How did it come about?
Okay, so Welcome to South Africa, Your Master Book is a compilation of stories that I've been writing on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So during lockdown level 5, things were tough for everybody. Everything shut down. The taps were empty. The bank balances were empty. When you have that 11 Rand 36 balance in your bank account and you're thinking, what's going to happen, So one of the days I was sitting with my son and he's like, he's hungry. That time it's load shedding. Our budget is low, and it was one of those situations. So I decided to make some cremora, mix it. It's load shedding, so I couldn't even heat up the water.
Yes.
So I make some cremora, mix it with cold water. It doesn't even dilute, I give him the cornflakes. He looks at it. Now he's not going to eat it, right?
Yeah.
So then I ended up going to buy him coleslaws at my friend's shop because we're staying in Soshanguve, right? So we go to my friend's shop, we buy the whatever. But when we come back, I was thinking like, what? Actually, what I love doing is telling stories. Let me get online, especially on a platform like LinkedIn where it's all serious. I was like, let me get online, share some local stories, but link it to, things that people can relate to, like brands that we use, everyday product type of thing, but kind of find like a little bit of humor and a little bit of a human insight that I can tie it into that connects people, and I kind of started writing those stories, bit by bit, and over time, I started getting those comments like, hey man, if you put those stories in a book, we'll buy it, and then enter Welcome to South Africa, Your Master Book,
And the title is very cheeky, the title is very naughtish, but then what's the intention? To grab attention or also to relate the message?
Yeah, I mean, look, the title is in line with the types of stories, right? So because it always adds a little bit of humor, that's why I thought like, giving it a title that's striking.
Yes.
When you hear the title and you hear Your Master Book, you're like, whoa, what's happening there?
Exactly.
But when you read the stories, you actually realize like it has a lot of South African insights, things that connect us as people, because the audience as well that I have is very diverse. I have really young people to really old people, really black people to really white people, right? So it's been quite an interesting kind of...
cater for everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, when I started started writing, I mean, you think maybe writing a story about Ispaza, Sasekasi, it would only relate to somebody who's from Ekas, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes that little bit of a insight into something that somebody else hasn't experienced, you know, is kind of interesting. And in the way that I describe it, you kind of see yourself in the place. You know, you go to my friend's Spaza, you're buying 12 rand airtime at 13 rand, you know? Everybody buys and you're wondering, let that 1 rand we have, you know? It's just the black tax that we pay, Kokasi, but it's a part of the Kasi experience, you know? So it's one of those things that if I'm staying in Bryanston, I might want to, you know, one day go to a Spaza and buy airtime for 13 rand, you know?
Why is it 13 bucks?
Yeah, because it's 12 rand, right? It's one of those, so that's what makes it interesting. So tell me,
I mean, the nice cover here, I see a picture.
Yes.
You've got a picture of a typical South African taxi minibus.
Yes.
And I see someone in front, a passenger holding a 200 rand note here. And there are others, there are other passengers at the back. And they are looking on in a very frightened, anxious way.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that you can see even the taxi drivers wearing the typical Zulu uniform, which is the leopard print vest, right? You know, and we all know, like, and the reason why I chose that scenario is like, it's one of the most typical South African scenarios that you can find. I know that even though I wasn't on a taxi today, that this morning, something like that has happened where you rock up in the morning, you couldn't get change, right? You rock up in the morning with the 200 bucks, and then obviously, you know, it's going to be a drama between you and Ubabungumeri, the driver, you know?
Who is the book targeted at?
So it's targeted at South Africans who love being South African, right? I know there's like a lot of things going on in South Africa. There's load shedding, political stuff or whatever, but there's also so many beautiful things about South Africa, right? And that's why, like, the stories that I tell, it's not about, you know, going from rags to riches and what. It's more about telling the ordinary South African stories, things that happen in the household, you know, that people can relate to.
Give us one.
I mean, look, the page that you got open is the Tupperware, right? We all know that black moms and Tupperware, they go together like Indian people and the surname Naidu, right? like Tupperware to black moms, it's like a culture, it's a religion, that thing, you know? And black moms love Tupperware. So like, I know now that I've published a book, I know that I've made it in life because now my mom doesn't give me the leftovers in the ice cream tub. Only in Tupperware, you know? That's how you know you've made it in life, you know? So those are the type of things that I talk about, you know, just like how we interact, especially like, for example, like when back in the days, you know, like, I mean, we just finished Christmas, man, and New Year. You know, back in the days, Christmas clothes was a big thing. You know, it was. Christmas in South Africa wasn't about having a Christmas tree and putting presents. It was more like, yo, you buy Christmas clothes, Ukoko puts it in a plastic at the top of the wardrobe, you know, and then when she's not looking, now and then you fit it on or whatever. But you also know that it's Christmas when you start seeing the baker's choice assorted, you know, box, isheli on top of, you know, those kind of situations. Those are the household situations that we all have been through, you know. There's certain things that have brought us together as families. Like I know right now, the TV is the center of the South African household. It's Netflix, it's that, Showmax, whatever, Real Housewives of this, right? But back in the days, it was the Welcome Dover stove, you know, the one where, you know, with Ekasi, once it's winter, you know, you start seeing the smoke rising, you know, there's the truck at Lulayo selling amala and that kind of stuff, you know, and that stove brought everybody together because we'd all sit around, whether it was you know, Ekasi, there was like 13 people living in a 2-room house, right? So we all sitting around that, you know, Ukoko maybe is baking, mom's is doing this, somebody's put the iron, getting it ready to, you know, to get hot on the thing, ready to iron uniform, sasa, you know, and those are just those moments in South African history or times, I guess, that bring us together. But, you know, it's not something that people usually talk about because people forget about these things, you know. But then just giving them that reminder, that nostalgia, you know, it just really warms people's hearts. And that's why I think people have been enjoying the stories as well.
I'd like to invite you into this conversation, if you are listening, and ask you a question. What is a typical South African product? Or a typical South African experience that no matter what, no matter where you go in the world, you will know that this is typical South African. And Katlego Thulare is writing has written a book about those typical South African moments,
Yes.
typical South African instances, including typical South African products. He's come with a little one here, also in the studio, wearing same colors. Beautiful indeed.
Yeah.
And I want to know from you,
Yeah.
as you are listening, your typical South African thing, because it might be that Katlego has written about it in his book that has just been, that is been published. He'll tell us how to get the book. 011-883-0702. 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send us a message on 072-702-1702. That's 072-702-1702. You can also send your voice note to the very similar number. I'm opening up the book and reading it, and it has touched on one of typical South African products there, TDK. How many people remember a TDK? I don't think that Sia, our producer, knows what a TDK is. I don't think Mongezi, the producer of the subsequent show, knows what TDK is. But let me just read a line or two from this chapter. It's a compilation of short stories. And in this one, it says, I'm surprised you're surprised about what happened to Musica. When you were busy rewinding TDK cassettes with your orange big pen, waiting to dub some music as soon as the radio presenter stopped talking, what did you think was going to happen? You had it down. You had it down to a science. You'd make sure you dubbed one song and paused the cassette just in time to dub the next song. Now and then, the cassette would jam up in the radio and the tape would tangle up. But then the TDK felt your pain and made sure that there wasn't a store that didn't sell empty CDs. Very interesting. There's one about we've spoken about Tupperware, and there's one about Mr. Video as well. I'm wondering if you remember Mr. Video. So it's a compilation of amazing, beautiful stories. You must get yourself this book. I'll put it up. I will put it up on Twitter right now. So I'm happy to hear from you. Join the conversation and tell us about this book, and tell us about mainly your typical South African experience. How do you know that you are in South Africa? What makes South Africa South Africa? Which brand makes South Africa a typical Mzansi? I know some people will say rugby and boerewors and biltong. Those are typical South African stuff. Some will say pap and all star. Typical South African stuff. 011-883-0702. And you've written something here, Katlego, about Lost Lover.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you've walked around any South African town, right?
Yeah.
You know that on the street poles, on the robots, on the walls, there's always these posters, like these ones that promise to find your lost lover. There's always a Dr. Oluwongo, Dr. Banbad, it says, I know, just come through, we'll find your lost lover, that kind of vibe, So they obviously kind of wrote a little bit of a parody story around those posters that we see everywhere. Because those are also part of a South African experience.
Yes.
There's places that you go to and you don't see that. But in South Africa, it's a norm just to see, looking for a job, call Dr. Oluwongo. Need to strengthen your relationship. Call Dr. Badbad,
No, definitely. But that idea is just so refreshing. And it is also timeless. It simply means that your book can't only be relevant for a specific period of time.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, that's also what I was kind of trying to go for, right? And that's why also I prioritized self-publishing it, right? Because then I'm not kind of confined. Because if you ask me, what is the book? Is it the category it falls under?
Yes.
I don't know, because it's not a history book, right? It's not an autobiography either, right? It's just a good book with good stories, enjoyable, lots of humor, lots of relatability, some heartfelt moments, lots of oh my goodness, aha moments as well, learning some new things as well. So it's kind of a mix of a melting pot of a lot of things that just try and really amplify that South African experience. Yeah.
Where can people find the book?
So at the moment you can order it online at welcometosouthafrica.co.za. Yeah.
Welcome to South
Yeah, or
Africa.
you can find me on LinkedIn if you're scared of technology
Yeah.
and you want to do the EFT stuff.
Yeah.
Then you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Katlego Thulare is the name. Yellow background. As soon as you see the yellow, you're gonna see it everywhere on your timeline as well. Yeah.
Is that why the little man is wearing yellow as well in the
Yeah,
studio?
yeah, no, he's my right hand man. You see, Bella schools are not open yet. You see, and that's also part of the.
He must earn his keep.
Yeah,
He must
yeah.
earn his keep. He can't just eat for free.
Yeah, I mean, so during lockdown, his mom was an essential worker, right?
Okay.
So me and him were chilling. That's why we ended up in that Cremora scenario.
Yeah.
I'm sure his mom would have made a better decision in that situation. But me, I had to just do the Cremora with cold milk and figure it out.
12 minutes to 12 o'clock. When we keep quiet at 12, Tsidi Madia will take over with midday report. For now, we are with you all the way to top of the hour. 011-883-0702. My Twitter handle is @IamFreeTSM. @IamFreeTSM, and we'll put up pictures of Katlego's book and some of the things that he has written. Benoni, tell me about Benoni.
Yeah.
What are you saying about Benoni in the book?
All right, so obviously, like I mentioned, in the first part of the book, it's a continuous story, right? So it's more of a getting to know each other. Yes. So Benoni is where I kind of grew up mainly, right? So I was born rural, bred Ekasi, and buttered in the suburbs a little bit, So I got that little bit of a everybody experience. So I was born in Marapiane, which is the other side of Hammanskraal, right? A very small village or whatever. That's where I was born. My mom is from Seabe, right? So there was a clinic, obviously, in Marapiane. They put you in the back of the van, then they took my mom there. She was a teenage mom. So I had teenage parents. So we moved around a lot. Then at some point, Timer got his first few jobs, then we moved to Bela Bela, right? Which is actually why I'm a little bit fancy in my swimming, right? Because Bela Bela is heated pools. I don't know who can swim in cold pools. Mina, the way I grew up soft. Because in Bela Bela it's heated pools there, right? So then obviously we moved to Davidson, right? Because the dad gets the next job, a little bit of a promotion. We're moving, type of thing. It's also early 90s, even before the first election. So when by the time it was the first elections, we were staying in Davidson, then my dad had me on his shoulders. We're standing in that long line. I'm hungry. I'm sure like the way this guy's feeling right now, like, oh my gosh, when is this gonna end? That's how I felt that day they were going for the elections. Then we moved to Benoni. Right, obviously we stayed in a back room, Kopinoni, but Koka, and the friends thinking, hey, this boy is living in the suburbs now, but we're actually living in the back room. The door, we actually close it with a speaker, when you go inside. When we leave, we lock it with a chain and a lock, but when we're inside, we used to close it with a speaker. So then you twist the speaker and so that's how we were living. And kind of in those spaces, that's actually where I got to build my creativity, because there was no TV, there was no, all we had to do was just have conversations between me, my dad, and my mom. We're living together, and they were also very young because my mom was 16, my dad was 17. So like I think my life experience is like almost like everything typical of South Africa.
So you are touching on Benoni, and based on that background.
Yeah, so my experience in Benoni, because that's actually where I met my first white people, right? So let me explain, right? So in Bela Bela, it's not that there's no white people, they're just brown. So you're thinking, maybe soft and free, relax. I've got cousins that have relaxed their hair, right? Yeah. But then that's where I actually met like what I believe like was the first white people, because also it was very new, to the suburb life, black people integration, all that kind of vibe, So we're staying at the back room by the Brains house, So I in there I just detail, those kind of experiences.
This is just such a fantastic book, and to think that also it is not too long wherein you have a huge continuous story. So even if you're a lazy reader, you can just pick up a book and then enjoy yourself, and it's a must-have. It's really a must-have. Let's go to your messages that came through on 072-702-1702. This one says, I know I'm in South Africa when I'm in a township on a Sunday and I see various spiritual church members wearing their attires going to church. Of course, early in the morning. That's when you know that you are in South Africa, when that happens all the way. 011-883-0702. Is this Piki Piki Mabelani that I'm seeing in front of me?
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
that is an age-old game that many of us have played, and I assume that we even mispronounced stuff. We've changed it to become South African, and it doesn't even say, the words don't even say what they mean. And I don't even know, but I suspect.
Yeah, no, I mean, piggy, like so in there, like I mean, we all know, like back in the days when we were kids, we used to do piggy to kind of like see who's gonna go first in a
Yes,
game or
yes,
whatever, you know.
yes.
So in there, I was just talking about how. Like I wish it was that easy in the adult life, you know, to decide which insurance am I gonna take,
Yeah.
you know. Like, but like you also like you're saying, it's very interesting. It's like everybody knows the words to that song,
Yeah.
but nobody knows, or to that, I guess, the rhyme or
Rhyme,
whatever.
yeah.
But nobody knows what it means because piggy
Yes.
piggy mabelane sala sala gentleman
Yeah.
Billy Boek. Like, what does that mean? Like, you know, like, but it's one of the most famous lyrics in
Yeah,
South Africa,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everybody knows it, but nobody knows what it means. So,
Yeah.
and that's also part of like how nice it is to be South African, because we take
Yes.
something and just make it South African. I mean, Jennifer Lopez says, "Because I live my life to the limit, and I
Yeah.
love it in a city uzolimala to the limit, and I love it." You know, that's what we do. That's
Yeah,
the South
yeah,
African
yeah.
vibe. You know, we just
Yes.
take things, switch it up, make it our own. You know.
That's quite interesting. So now, the book. Have you gone the corporate way of selling the book? Have you approached as these big bookshops to have it? I know it's self-published, but
Yeah.
what's your marketing strategy?
Yeah, so at the moment, my system is to build the prototype, right? Because what I'm building is also something very unique, right? It's like, it's not just a book, it's an experience. As you can see, it comes in a box. Itlale Miki, the Blik Beker.
Yeah,
Right now we
yeah.
call it Libiki, but it's actually
Yeah.
a Blik Beker, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that's where Libiki
I've
comes
learned
from.
something new for
Right?
today.
Yeah. So I also learned it during the book stuff, you know, when you're like,
Yeah.
hey, we got the enamel cup there,
Yeah,
what, you know,
yeah.
type of thing. And that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build something unique, build an audience that I can actually, grow with as well. You know,
Yeah.
so at the moment, it's obviously, selling it via an e-commerce store online,
Yeah.
and then around Jersey, I do the deliveries in person. You know, and then also, I mean, I've colored my car yellow. It's got the branding, so it's a billboard. You know, it's like that kind of vibe. You know,
Yes.
so that's what I'm building. But I mean, the opportunity to get it in store and that kind of stuff are coming through. So we're obviously in negotiations around
Yeah.
how that will work and all of that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
doing more mass prints and
Yes,
growing
yes.
and taking
Yeah.
it to the next level.
So, I mean, where do you see the book in the next 10 years?
I mean, in the next 10 years, because I feel like this book can always grow, right?
Yeah.
Because there's always some new experience. I haven't covered every single thing that's South African. So with this book, because what I've done is obviously link it to brands that we consume or use. The next book, I will link it to locations that that you can go to in South Africa. You know, just those type of experiences. Like, what is it like waking up in Bryanston versus waking up Eslalini versus waking up Ekasi,
Yes.
type of thing. Like
Yes.
like the message that you read there,
Yeah.
where they were talking about, I know I'm in South Africa when I see church people,
Yeah.
but those are experiences. So now that we've spoken about those kind of things, now how do we document it? How do we detail those kind of experiences? Because those are experiences outside of brands. Those are just, based on where you're from and, what
Certainly.
you've seen. Yeah.
I mean, I also see typical South African brands like True Love, Nando's, and all these potential partners, I assume, for the future.
Yeah, and Nando's is actually quite an interesting one because it was the first story that I wrote on LinkedIn. And then, like I mentioned, obviously times are a bit tough,
Yeah.
And then the chief marketing officer of Nando's actually got a hold of me, Doug Place, and he got his PA to get a hold of me, and he gave me like a 2,000 Rand Nando's voucher, and that's when I knew I was like, there's something, let me write about it. Chippies, see if they'll give me my chippies. Let me write about this, and that's how I actually kind of got into the vibe. But then I really speak about the brands that we interact with a lot, and obviously, as a copywriter, there have been those opportunities to actually work with some of the brands as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, Katlego, I really wish you the absolute best. This is fantastic work.
Yeah.
I mean, I would wish for this also to be available at various South African schools as well.
Yeah.
I think it would give a very interesting insight to the young ones
Yeah.
as they are learning about their country, to learn in a fun way and make it very accessible and very fun to study about the social culture of South Africa.
Yeah.
Very, very beautiful. And listen, so now from here, where to?
So after this book, obviously, like we mentioned, like I do mention some indigenous games as well in there, right?
Okay.
So because you see right now it's the yellow box. Now next maybe we'll have a black box with some indigenous games inside. So that's the next
Yes.
project that I'm working on now.
Yeah.
Just putting together diketo,
Yeah.
murabaraba,
Yeah.
those kind of games.
Yeah.
But package it nice, make it nice, something that you can enjoy with your kids. Because right now, the kids go out, they don't even go outside anymore.
Yeah.
Koka, see, you go outside, you play, your knees get, as long as you come back before the street lights switch on, you and your mom are sharp, and that's the vibe. But then sometimes, when you're living in the burbs, like right now, I'm being buttered in the burbs, like I need something that I can enjoy with my son, that kind of stuff. So that's where the idea came about. So the next step is, making some indigenous games.
We wish you the best. And once again, you said the website where people can access the book is called?
Welcome to southafrica.co.za.
Welcome to southafrica.co.za.
Yeah.
A beautiful book indeed. Do support the young man who is here with us, Katlego Thulare. Very interesting and